Japanese universities, they've shown that this concept of shared silence for 4 to 7 minutes lowers your body stress, regulates your breathing, and it restores your cognitive clarity, your logic. And in order for you to get to a resolution, we've got to set ourselves up for success by calming our nervous system down. That's the only way that's going to be possible. This is what allows you to listen without feeling the need to prepare your defense. We've all experienced that before when our partner's talking, and what we're really listening for is, what can I say to combat this? So we're not listening to understand them, we're listening to defend ourselves. Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about when one of you wants to talk, but the other person shuts down, which makes it kind of difficult to have a conversation, right? For things to get resolved. So we're going to talk about this pursue, withdraw dynamic that can happen in relationships. We're going to talk about what shutting down actually means. And just a little preview, it doesn't mean that they don't care. How you can stop taking their shutdowns personally, and how to use consensual conversations to set up talks for success. One person wanting to talk and the other person shutting down doesn't mean one of you cares more. It just means that you guys are built differently. It just means that your nervous systems are coping differently. This dynamic is incredibly common. In the past, I was the one who wanted to talk about things right away with so much urgency because I wanted to fix things. I wanted things to get back to normal. And it often gets labeled as I'm the mature one because I want to talk about it, versus those who shut down. We kind of look at it as, oh, you're just avoiding things. You don't want to talk about it because you don't care. You're okay with things staying the same. But looking at it this way, from this perspective, keeps your relationship stuck. It doesn't help it grow. And at the end of the day, it's not about who's right. It's about how you guys each respond to stress and learning how to work with how you two are and accepting the differences and finding a way that works, that both people feel ready and open to talking about things. Now, this is one of the most common patterns in committed relationships. And it's especially intensified once you have kids, when you have low sleep, when resentment has built up, when past conversations have all led to the same outcome, and you've learned that these conversations don't get you anywhere. So you kind of look at communication as important, but you're not seeing it pay off, right? And many of my clients come into marriage coaching believing I'm the communicator, they're emotionally unavailable. I am more than willing to talk about it, they're avoidant. But what's usually happening is far more physiological than showing how much they care about the relationship. You see, the one who's ready to talk, the one that pursues having the conversations, they feel a sense of urgency and anxiety until the issue is resolved. That would be me. And then there's the other type, the one that withdraws, right? The one who tends to shut down, gets flooded and overwhelmed when things get intense. Here's what's happening. One partner regulates through connection and processing out loud. The other regulates through space, having quiet, having time to process what's happening. Neither is wrong. Both are trying to feel safe, to feel better. They're just different. One seeks connection through talking. The other seeks safety through space. The pursuer's brain says, if we don't solve this, we're not okay. And we can't just pretend. The withdrawal's brain's like, well, if we keep talking, I'm just going to shut down or explode. Both are trying to protect themselves. They just have a different approach, and they're going after something slightly different. Now, this is where I love to introduce the concept of consensual conversations with my clients. A consensual conversation is a conversation that's mutually agreed upon. You both want to have the conversation. You both agree on when that conversation is going to happen, right? So there's no ambushing, there's no cornering someone, there's no demanding that it needs to happen right now. And you're both entering the conversation regulated, and you're both clear on the goal of the conversation. It's being set up for success. The goal isn't to force a conversation to happen. The goal is to set the conversation up for success, right? And for me, the longest time I thought, no, if we have the conversation, it will get fixed. But what I didn't realize that without setting the conversation up for success, the conversation can go in so many different directions, including directions that I don't want it to go to, right? Where we end up arguing, where I end up hurt and feeling like I'm not being cared for, that I don't matter. And so let's define what setting up conversations for success is not. It's not immediate agreement. It's not complete resolution. It's not getting them to admit that you're right. While the petty side of us can be like, hell yeah, that's what I want. That's exactly what I want. What you really want is to feel like you two are strong in trust, respect, partnership. If your goal is to just get them to admit that you're right, that doesn't necessarily mean they believe you're right. They could just be giving you lip service. And that will erode the feeling that they can be open with you. Would you rather have a relationship where they just say what they think you want to hear? Or would you like to know how they actually feel and what they actually want? One leads to true, authentic intimacy and connection, and the other is just performative. It's not authentic. What success is knowing when regulation is needed, feeling heard, ending the conversation with more understanding of each other than when you started, working with each other to figure out what's next. It's not about perfection. It's not about not getting angry. It's not about not getting dysregulated. It's just recognizing, oh, I'm needing to be regulated right now. Hence, needing to have consensual conversations, right? It's not like, oh, I'm pissed and we need to talk about this right now, or waiting for your partner to get home and you are ready to jump down their throat. Or if they're working on something and you're like, you need to drop everything you're doing, doesn't matter how important it is, you need to talk about this right now with me, right? If that's being done, that's just setting the conversation up for failure, because they're starting off the conversation already feeling like they don't have a voice, or already feeling like what they want and feel don't matter, and what you want matters more. So there's already an imbalance and a power struggle that's going to happen. And this shift alone of setting the conversation up for success versus simply having the conversation and letting that be the priority, that shift alone changes so much. I have a couple that I worked with that was stuck in this loop for years. She brought things up immediately. He would shut down or walk away. She would escalate and he'd withdraw even more. Inside, she was saying, he doesn't care. I'm alone in this marriage. I'm the only one putting in the work. For him, he's like, I can't win. No matter what I say, it's wrong. And I feel constantly attacked. And so we reframe this shutdown as him protecting himself. We removed the moral judgment of what each person saw was happening, and we slowed down the process. She learned to ask, is now a good time to talk about something that's been on my mind? He learned to respond with a time commitment instead of avoidance. Not right this second, but can we talk about this after dinner? And so they began pacing their conversations, not feeling the pressure to finish the conversation and resolve everything in one go, but rather setting the conversation up for success, even if it meant having the conversation in multiple phases. Because if you push to have a conversation and your goal is to finish it rather than doing it well, rather than prioritizing both of you still wanting to be engaged in the conversation, both of you still having the capacity to be engaged in the conversation, what you're going to do is end up taking longer to resolve things because things will be said that can't be taken back. There's going to be more criticism. There's going to be more defensiveness, more blaming, more dysregulated communication because you're triggered. But when you pace your conversations and you're being attuned to how you're feeling and your capacity, and you're attuning to what your partner is giving off, whether they're still ready, they're still able to have this conversation, they're not getting overwhelmed, they're not feeling anxious, this is how you can stay connected during the conversation. You get to still have your feelings of frustration and wanting something to change, wanting things to improve. And when you do it this way, conflict gets to become less frequent. Arguing gets to be completely eliminated because you're noticing, you're reading each other's body languages, and you're paying attention to how you're each speaking and how you're reacting and letting that drive whether it's still good to have the conversation or whether it's time to pause. So you're essentially able to pivot away from arguments because you're noticing the warning signs. Oh, we're getting towards arguing again. Pause. Let's take some space. Let's think about what we just both heard, process it, and then come back a different time when we're both ready again to have a conversation that's set up for success. And then when that happens, each conversation gets to be less intense. Nothing about their personalities changed. It's just the setup changed. They set the conversations up for success and they changed their goal, right? You can still have the goal of resolving the problem, but maybe you also have a hidden goal of we have to solve the problem right now in this single conversation. That's a lot of pressure. Would you rather have the problem solved or to get it done as soon as possible? Because I can argue that point and say, well, what's actually faster is keeping it a consensual conversation. Because if you're going to push for a conversation to be completed by a certain time, then things are going to get messy. And instead of having conflict over this one small issue, it's going to turn into a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of back and forth, and the focus of the conversation will shift to something else. You've lived this before, probably multiple times, where you look back and you're like, how did this conversation get to this? How did we get from talking about this to arguing about that? That's what happens when the conversation isn't set up for success. And when conversations are forced to happen rather than having consensual conversations that maybe do take more conversations, but at least the conversations are staying calm and mature, respectful, compassionate, productive. So something that I actually just came across is that there is actually a Japanese practice called ma, and it is exactly what I'm talking about here. In Japanese, this means the between. And this practice is simply whenever Japanese couples have conflict, they make space for the conflict. So this means taking an intentional pause. It's not avoiding it. It's not creating distance between each other. It's simply creating a space for clarity to occur. And in this space, they're not defending themselves. They're not arguing their point. They're not explaining anything. They're just saying, let's take a moment for ourselves. And in this time, they get to regulate themselves, because when you're dysregulated, your heart rate is elevated, your cortisol levels are up. And when our emotions are high, our logic is low, which means we're not thinking clearly. Our brain is ready to defend ourselves, right? It's like, I got you. I'm going to defend your honor. I'm going to say some things, and I'm going to look at them as our enemy. But you know that healthy communication requires us to look at our partners as our teammate. So if you see your partner as your enemy, you are not ready. The conversation is not going to be set up for success. And this is evident in how you speak to each other, how you view the situation, your lack of compassion, how you're interpreting what they're saying and their actions. You're essentially in survival mode rather than in solution mode, team mode, okay? And in these Japanese universities, they've shown that this concept of this shared silence for 4 to 7 minutes, it lowers your body stress, it regulates your breathing, and it restores your cognitive clarity, your logic. And in order for you to get to a resolution, we've got to set ourselves up for success by calming our nervous system down. That's the only way that's going to be possible. This is what allows you to listen without feeling the need to prepare your defense, right? We've all experienced that before, when our partner's talking and what we're really listening for is, how can I react to this? What can I say to combat this? So we're not listening to understand them. We're listening to defend ourselves. And when we do that, we're not setting the conversation up for success. We're setting it up to prove that we're right. We're not looking to connect. Okay? So consider looking at this intentional pause as a way to help your marriage resolve things faster and calmer and better, not as a threat, not as avoidance, not as a sign that your spouse doesn't care, but rather the necessary step to have a more productive conversation where the two of you can come out of it feeling more connected and stronger, okay? But let's talk about shutting down. Shutting down can often be misinterpreted as avoidance, immaturity, lack of caring, and this creates pressure. Pressure increases the withdrawal because the partner who wants to pursue the conversation is like, hello, are you going to bring it up? Or are you hoping that I'm going to forget? Are you hoping that I'll just give up because it's not happening? But the more you push for connection, the more they're going to withdraw into safety. And then the pursuer feels abandoned. The withdrawer feels attacked. And both of you feel misunderstood and very disconnected. This is how resentment builds quietly. Okay? And this isn't about love or effort. It's about safety. It's about caring about the other person's experience in addition to caring about your own, right? No one's saying abandon yourself and abandon what you need. But when both partners understand that you're not each other's enemies, and you start to understand why they react the way they do, and you understand that you're just different in the way that you regulate and what you want to work towards, you start to soften your approach. Consensual conversations make this possible. Pacing becomes normal. Space is no longer perceived as abandonment. Talking is no longer coming off as an attack. So here's what I want you to try. Try not feeling locked into completing your conversations. Try shifting your focus from having to complete the conversation in this single conversation and welcome the opportunity to stop the conversation mid-escalation. You're noticing it's heading down the wrong path, right? You're now about to walk into a habit that you guys have solidified and strengthened over the last decade. And just pause. Notice that it's going down an unproductive path. Another thing you could do, ask for consent before having heavy conversations. This can look like just throwing it out there that you want to talk about something and asking them when a good time would be to talk about it. Or asking them, hey, I want to talk about this. Is now a good time? Because if they're saying yes, then go for it. They are ready to listen. They're ready to be a part of the conversation, which is what you want. Another thing, clarify the goal. Are you trying to win or are you trying to understand each other? And then define success before you begin. What is the purpose of this conversation? What do I want to convey? What do I want to get from this conversation? And make sure that it's all centered around reconnecting. What needs to happen to reconnect? What things do you need to communicate? What things do you need to request? What things do you need to do to ensure that your partner feels like they want to continue engaging in this conversation? That they feel heard, that what they want and feel is just as important as what you want and feel, even if it feels like it's complete opposites. So I encourage you to welcome having shorter conversations, keeping each other's well-being at the forefront. Have more frequent but lighter check-ins. Don't wait until something goes catastrophically wrong to have a hard conversation. If you get to that point, that means that there's been multiple moments that have been building up. Catch it earlier, right? Just like with health, preventative work is always better than reactive, okay? You don't want to go to the doctor because you've been in pain for a long time. No, you want to make sure you're going on a regular basis to make sure everything's looking okay. Or at the first sign of trouble, not the 10th time. Also, repair every single time you have conflict, okay? This is where you get to learn. This is where you get to evolve as partners, where your communication gets to improve, and then you get to reconnect, okay? This work takes personal responsibility. It takes humility. It takes compassion for your differences that you have with each other. And it takes a willingness to regulate yourself first. This is how you slow down arguments that often feel like, I don't know, I just ended up here. I have no control over myself. Actually, you do. And it starts with regulating yourself. Okay? Doesn't require you to force communication, doesn't require you to change who you are or become something you're not. It's just changing your approach. If you're stuck feeling like you're the one constantly pursuing to have a conversation with your spouse, or you're constantly withdrawing and you have been in this loop for longer than you would like and you want things to change, you don't need more things to read. You need help interrupting this pattern in real time. So if that's you, book a clarity call. This is exactly what I help my clients do, is learn how to slow things down so that you have that moment of awareness where you're like, oh, this is a time where pivoting would be good, so that we don't end up arguing and we can keep this conversation a conversation, or know when to pause so that our conversations can stay productive, even if it means not finishing it right here and now. Okay? We'll get to identify how you're contributing to how things are going, understand what's driving this, and then create a new and healthier habit for you two to start implementing and strengthening and have it become more second nature, so that you can have consensual conversations and have it work for your marriage instead of against it. Okay? Now, try that. Let me know how it goes. Book a clarity call if you're ready for more personalized support. If you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please share this with them. Better yet, share this on Instagram and tag me in your stories so I can give you a shout out. If you love this show, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. Please consider leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That's what helps this show grow. It helps more people like you get the help that they need. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. And I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.